Good evening and welcome to the Burbank Police Commission meeting for our regular meeting for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. Before we get into our call of order and roll call, for public comment options, to speak during public comment, members of the public may speak for 3 minutes in person in the council chamber, or they may call 818-238-3335. That's 818-238-3335. Members of the public who attend in meeting in chamber will speak first, followed by those phoning in their comments. And we'll go ahead and start with our call to order. Ms. Nakamura? I'm sorry, that's calling us to order, and we're going to go with our roll call.
Very good. Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Chair Coombs?
Present.
Chair Commissioner Elman?
Here.
Commissioner Feruzin is absent. Commissioner Hakobian?
Present.
Commissioner McKenna?
Present.
Commissioner Wenzel?
Present.
Okay, and Paul, if you wouldn't mind leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
Right, join me in the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Paul, thank you. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and move on to item C, which is commission announcements and reporting out by commissioners and ad hoc subcommittees. And we'll go ahead and go from my left to right again. I do want to lift up, at the last meeting, we had discussed having at this time commissioners reporting out on that homework assignment. We're actually going to hold that for item G2. So if you have, if you made phone calls to local human service agencies, we're going to hold that for G2 during the discussion. Other than that, let's go ahead and open up to any announcements and reporting out. Romik, you want to start?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Coombs. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Chief Quintero on his appointment for the new chief police position for the city of Burbank. We really look forward to the positive impact on the department, and just looking forward to see what he's going to do. On February 27th, I was joined by Commissioner McKenna and Commissioner Wenzel in a meeting with the Superintendent Paramo to talk about school safety and the ongoing conversations that we have as community members. And then on February 22nd, of course, attended the Chief Albanese's farewell ceremony, just celebrating like a legend in the policing world, and just wonderful reconnecting with some community members while we were there. And on February 25th, Commissioner Coombs and I were invited to tour the Glendale Police Department. Lieutenant of Patrol Peter Robertson did a wonderful job just showcasing the department, and also we got an opportunity to talk about the Driver Safety Committee and the collaboration we'll be doing with Glendale. And then finally, tomorrow I'll be meeting with Lieutenant Robinson to talk about beginning on the initial talks about the driver safety campaign and building that template for Glendale. And that's all I have to report.
Romik, thank you. Paul, anything?
It's been a busy month all the way around. A number of us participated in the homeless account this month. We also met with the superintendent of schools. Thank you again, Ann, for setting that up. Mike and I participated in the Coffee with the Cop, and this past weekend I was able to participate in the Matthew Pavelka Scholarship Bocce Ball Tournament, where I did get to spend some time with our new chief. And it was, I think everybody is going to be very pleased. It's going to be a seamless transition and a real uplifting experience. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Paul. Mike?
I also attended Coffee with a Cop at REI. I attended on the 22nd, the farewell get-together for Chief Albanese. And I also received an email from a resident concerning a traffic issue at Jefferson Elementary School. I forwarded on the email of the resident to Sherry, who referred it to Lieutenant Barkas, and he contacted me and the resident. I think everything is resolved at this point.
Mike, thank you for that. I just want to add to that briefly. Also, for any of us, if you ever receive emails from the public, you can also respond and comment on them during the commission response to public comments, which is item E. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case. Thank you for reporting that out. And if any of you ever feel a need to respond to any of those emails you get, that's the time to do it. So we've got that space. A lot of the things that folks have identified I've been involved in. I've got a chance to, congratulations again to Chief Quintero. The homeless count went great. We got a relatively empty area. We were talking about the possibility of implementing drones in the future in that area to count that area. Chief Albanese's retirement, it was nice in a non-Brown Act violation kind of way to see everybody and get together, so that was good. And then also appreciate the Glendale tour that Romick had helped set up, so thank you for that. Mike?
I too attended the farewell to Chief Albanese and wish him well. And congratulations to new Chief Quintero. I also spoke with several people on the task force regarding domestic violence.
Excellent, thank you. Ann?
Hello. I also attended the meeting with our superintendent, Paramo, and it's very laid back, it's always promising and educational. And third, I look forward to working with our new chief, and I welcome any comments from anybody on my blog or in my neighborhood.
Ann, thank you for that. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to item D, which is oral communications. And again, to speak during public comment, members of the public may speak for 3 minutes in person in the council chamber, or they may call 818-238-3335. Members of the public who attend the meeting in chamber will speak first after turning in a public comment card, and that will then be followed by the phone comment. So we have one comment card from the public that's present, and that is Mr. David Donahue. Mr. Donahue, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Chair Coombs, and to the rest of the commissioners. Thank you for your service and the opportunity to address you. To staff and everybody else here, I want to kind of call out the significance of the benefit of having the society that we do. Several years ago, I brought to this body my concerns about e-bikes and e-scooters and things of that nature, as my wife and I had been, pushed off the sidewalk as we were walking. This is an example of how you can bring something forward. It can be deliberated. This is not all the time, but sometimes studies can be requested from staff, presented to the commission, and then that can be forwarded on to the city council. Well, that happened. So on the 11th, just a couple of weeks ago, City Council heard and had the presentation from Lieutenant Frommer, and it was encouraging to see that I believe it was a 5-0 vote to continue the discussion about e-bikes. And since you all have heard and seen the presentation, there was massive confusion about the different levels of them, the power of these e-bikes. And it was interesting that I hadn't really understood it until I had read the report, but that certain scooters are allowed on the sidewalks, while bikes are not. And I could be wrong, but the codes need to be updated. I guess that's my point. So for anybody who's watching or listening or has questions, the people that you know, bring the issues forward to the commissions. It was interesting listening to some other commissioners say that they should have had that topic, because I was in chamber listening to them. But I believe that this was the right place. It was deliberated professionally, and I'm just really excited to be able to say thank you to Lieutenant Frommer, to the Burbank Police Department for taking the time to focus on this issue. It was really critical, and I do believe it will be a benefit to the community. So thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any, we don't have any other commenters in the audience. Do we have any comments or callers on the phone?
No calls pending.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead and we'll move my right to left if folks would like to respond to Mr. Donahue. Ann?
I've made it a point to kind of monitor. I walk to my work. And I honestly, I think that was the morning following with the turning the clocks ahead, there were bikes galore outside of school. And I kind of was measuring the tires because I'm not as familiar as I probably should be with e-bikes and tire. Man, where did they come from? A lot more bikes parked with, like 3-inch wheels and all kinds of gadgets. And I think that I'm glad we're working on this.
Thank you, Ann. Mike, did you have anything you want to respond to?
Sure, real quick. No, I agree with Mr. Donahue. Thank you for coming up today. And you're right, it is a convoluted concern and trying to figure out how to react to it. And though the council has got some information, I'm not sure that it's going to be a one-step process. It may take a while as individual types of bikes come out and as they address them. So I'm all for it, but it may take a while to get it done.
And so I just want to say, it was 3 years ago that this was first brought up? Is that, so it kind of blows me away that it was that long ago, but also, I'm just appreciative of the fact that we have these processes where we can talk these things through. Sometimes things take a really long time to bring it to the attention of the officials that it needs to, but I think we've done some good work walking through it, and I appreciate you bringing it to us, so thank you. And I appreciate Paul advocating for this as well. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Donahue, for coming to address us on this subject again. I think it's one of these problems which really is going to be a very difficult solution because we call them bikes, but it's technology. And technology is always ahead of the curve for law and ordinances, things of that nature. You can take a Class 2 bike, hold down a couple of buttons, enter some codes, and now it's a Class 3 bike. We'll never be able to do anything about that. But hopefully, we'll start somewhere, and we'll get it. We'll be on the right track. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mike. Paul?
Thank you again, Mr. Donahue, for bringing this up. And as you've seen my bike, it doesn't necessarily look like an electric bike, and it was bought from a reputable dealer. When we received the presentation, one of the things we were told about were the classifications and the markings. None of those are on that bike. And like I said, it was bought from Amazon. It wasn't bought from somebody on the street. I have not taken it to the bike shop yet. That we were told that if we go to the bike shop that they will put the stickers on it, and I will do that. But we're getting to the point, unfortunately, where people are getting hurt, and that's bringing more attention to it. As your comment about the sidewalk, which kind of started the whole thing, at one point in time, the chief had told us that the code said that the only thing that had to yield to a pedestrian on a sidewalk was a skateboard. So obviously, that is probably 30 years old, and we have proposed possibly changing that to, very simply, pedestrians have the right of way. If you see a pedestrian, especially with a baby carriage or something, it's your business to get out of the way. So you should be looking that far ahead. It is unfortunate that it takes this long. It's unfortunate that I think the reason it's in the news is because people are getting hurt. But God willing, we will step up before it becomes a major problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and I just want to note skateboarding is not a crime. Moving on, Bromick.
Thank you.
Trying, but on the sidewalk, it's invasive.
Thank you, James. And of course, thank you so much, Mr. Donahue, for bringing it up to us, 3 years ago? Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies. But, you know, it just kind of shows the power of public comment, but also shows the power of community members who really care about what's happening in our community. And since then, I've been more conscious about e-bikes. I really appreciate the conversation that we're having. And now when I see an e-bike, I really think about the things that we talk about. And I think it's really important because, you know, there is a lot of danger out there. I mean, I live on a small street on Santa Anita, and I see kids zooming by at 40, 50 miles an hour on those e-bikes. So, yeah, you think about these things, but again, you know, this conversation, you know, coming from a community member who's concerned is important. I really appreciate the fact that we get to talk about this.
Thank you, Romick. Yeah, Paul?
One more thing that was brought up, and I don't know if it was brought up in front of council, was the olden days, I guess you used to register bikes. And apparently that is against the California code, we were told. So it's not something we can necessarily ask for. But maybe if these are classified in a different way. At one point in time, I spoke to Councilmember Anthony, who basically said, I think we're describing a moped rather than a bicycle, and that may be an angle that they go for. But I do know people are getting creative in ways that we can appropriately enforce this and stay within the parameters.
Thank you, Paul. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item F, which is the approval of minutes from the February 19th, 2025 meeting. Hopefully, folks have had a chance to review that. And what I'm looking for is a motion to approve. Paul motions to approve. Romick seconds it. Everything's good with it? So okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from February 19th, 2025? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay. Unanimous. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item G. Item G1 is a training conducted by the City Attorney's Office on the Brown Act Public Records Act and Political Reform Act, and this is coming from our Senior Assistant Attorney, City Attorney Ray Johal. Mr. Johal, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Coombs and Commission. Let's see if this is perfect. Could I get the, oh, perfect. So today I'll be presenting a training on the Brown Act, the Conflicts of Interest Code, as well as the Public Records Act that you probably all are familiar with. And you probably have already heard the Brown Act training before. This will be just a refresher. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you ask those now, and I can try to answer as best as I can. And it's really to present this for the benefit of the commission and compliance with the laws and knowing what kind of repercussions that you may face for violating the Brown Act. So let's get started. So what is the Brown Act? It's the California's open meeting law. The Brown Act specifically is codified in Government Code 54950. The main purpose of it is that it makes all meetings of the legislative body of a local agency open and public, and that's for the benefit of the community. Now, the Brown Act requires all aspects of the legislative body's decision-making process, including discussion, debate, and acquisition of information to be conducted in public. Some prohibitions with regards to the Brown Act. It prevents a majority of the body from reaching a concurrence through direct communication, intermediaries, or technological devices. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we move forward. And just for your information, this training includes some Simpsons references. To be honest, I've never watched The Simpsons, but it was our office's theme this year. So enjoy if you know The Simpsons at all. So who does the Brown Act apply to? It applies to city council and any standing boards or commissions for a local agency that has jurisdiction over a specific subject matter. And that agency or that board must have fixed set meetings. The exception, which you all are aware of, are the ad hoc subcommittees. It requires less than a quorum to participate, and it has to be a temporary purpose. So that's why we had that discussion earlier, probably a few months ago, where we got rid of some of these ad hoc committees because they were over a year long. So we got to make sure that we're on top of that and keep these temporary. So again, it applies to every commission, including the police commission. So what is a meeting under the Brown Act? It's any congregation of a majority of members at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate upon any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So there are 6 exceptions to what is considered a meeting, and these will be codified in the government code, but specifically it's individual contacts, conferences open to the public that also requires non-payment to be a part of it, open and publicized community meetings organized by another organization, social events, open and publicized meetings of another body of the local agency or a legislative body of another local agency, or open and notice meetings of a standing committee. Some common pitfalls that you'll experience as a commission are the collective briefings, also serial meetings, which commonly referred to as daisy chains, where one commissioner sends a notice or an email to another commissioner who then sends it to another commissioner to convey a message. You also have the hub and spoke, which is where one commissioner may send an email out to the different commission members, and then they'll get responses and collectively come to a conclusion. So we have to be mindful of that potential pitfall in our discussions as a commission, as a group. Also, you have to consider retreats and workshops and informal gatherings. And that is because under the Brown Act, you are restricted from discussing business of the commission, specifically any subject that's under their subject matter jurisdiction, as a group more than a quorum. So you have to be careful about the conversations you have at these gatherings, at these retreats and workshops. The biggest issue is public appearance, right? So we have to be mindful of, if we see the full commission sitting at one table at a gathering, it may not be related to what's going on with the police or public safety, but it does give an impression that there may be some discussion regarding those issues. So always be mindful of that to avoid any Brown Act violations. These are probably things you already know, but what is an open and public meeting? It requires public notice, an agenda that adequately describes the topics to be discussed at the meeting, and it allows for public attendance and comments. What is proper public notice? For a regular meeting, an agenda has to be posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting. For a special meeting, it's 24 hours. So for topics like our annual review of the police department, OIS, it's not OIR, that we set for a special meeting. In certain scenarios, we also do the
military equipment?
maybe not, military equipment as well. And for emergency meetings, it's 24-hour notice if there's an actual or threatened disruption of vital public facilities. So we haven't had a situation where we've had an emergency meeting for this body specifically, but if you were to sit on another body, there may be a situation where that could arise. And so the notice is 24 hours. And there's still other obligations for the notice requirement to other interested parties as well. I did want to bring up here the teleconference rules as part of our obligation to be present at these meetings. So currently the law as it stands, and this may be subject to change in 2026, but there are two scenarios where a commissioner may appear via teleconference, and one of them is going to be under a just cause scenario. The other is an emergency scenario. The law does limit the teleconferencing ability within a given calendar year. So for just cause scenarios, it's 2 meetings per calendar year per commissioner. For an emergency situation, it is also, in this scenario where we meet once a month, it's a 2 times per calendar year as well. And what qualifies as just cause versus an emergency situation? The law codifies that just cause is for the need to not be present for childcare or caregiving issues, contagious illness, physical or mental disability, or for travel while on duty or through work for a legislative body or the local agency. So those are the only scenarios you can request teleconference appearance for a just cause scenario. And we've had that come up where we've had commissioners attend conferences, which under the code would be considered work for the local agency, so we've allowed teleconferencing in that scenario. And those laws have changed since the last teleconference situation that we've had due to the change of the year as of January 1st, 2025. So scenarios are going to be different coming up this year. And then for an emergency situation, it's any physical or family emergency. So if a commissioner needs to appear via teleconference, those are the 2 scenarios that you can do that. And that would require also that the commission take action at the very beginning of the next scheduled meeting and to either approve or deny that request. Okay. And there's other caveats to that as well, which requires some audio capability, 2-way teleconferencing, things like that, so the public can be present and participate.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, go ahead.
So just to clarify, if I heard correctly, so if for just cause,
Right.
NACOL conference or something like that, that we would have to discuss it before the next meeting that they would be requesting that?
No, you can, well, if you are aware of it, you are required to bring that up to the commission at the
Okay.
earliest possible time. So in that scenario, you know when you're going to go to the conference, we should be discussing it as soon as possible to make a decision as to the teleconference.
I might be getting into the weeds. Where would that be discussed? Would it be in the commissioners reporting out section, or would it be in new agenda items, or?
If we're aware of the scenario and we are, we can do it as a agenda item for the next scheduled meeting.
But they'll be gone that meeting. That's the problem.
Right. So if we're talking about the meeting right before that we
Right,
know,
right.
yes, then we can do it as a reporting out and we can make a
Okay.
decision.
Okay.
The law does allow for a decision based upon teleconferencing to occur without it being publicized or agendized, based off the necessary need for teleconferencing.
Thank you.
But you'd also said that if it pertains to the business of the commission, that that's appropriate.
Correct.
Okay.
Mike? Mike had a question as well.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Wouldn't the appropriate time to notify is when we select people to go to Nicole? That'd be the right time to say they will be, yeah, I think that'd be the best, easiest way.
That could be if we know what they're going to be out for a specific meeting.
Right.
It may not fall on that same week, on a week of a meeting that we have, so it would just depend.
Thank you.
The other requirement under the Brown Act is the location of the meeting. It has to be within the jurisdictional territory of the governing body. So here, we're in the city of Burbank. There are some exceptions that allow for these meetings to take place outside of the city of Burbank. There's quite a few. There's 7, and they're very specified. But generally speaking, it's to comply with state law if there's a need for that to occur, which I don't foresee one in this scenario. If you were going to inspect a real estate property that's part of your jurisdictional authority to make a decision about, you can go out to that real estate and hold the meeting there. If there's a multi-agency meeting that's scheduled where you have different jurisdictions coming together, you can have a meeting at one of those local jurisdictions. It doesn't have to be within the city of Burbank. And there's other ones, especially, specifically related to meeting with attorneys regarding pending litigation, things like that. But that's not going to fall under this commission's purview. So I just wanted to throw that out there so you all are aware of that there are exceptions. So agendas, the basic rule is that no action or discussion of items unless posted on the agenda. The exceptions are when you hold an emergency meeting, where there are 2/3 of the members present, determine the need for immediate action which came to members' attention after posting the agenda. And you can hold a brief response to comments from the public. Contents of the agenda require a meeting time and place, brief general description of each item of business to be discussed, and it's not to exceed 20 words. Public's rights under the Brown Act is the ability to review agendas and writings distributed to the body. They may record proceedings, and the public can criticize positions of the commission or the discussion topics. The legislative body cannot require members of the public to register names, provide info, or answer questionnaires as a condition to attend the meeting. So just because somebody wants to be anonymous, we cannot prevent them from participating in the public hearing. And you cannot, as a legislative body, use secret balloting to cast votes on decisions. A speaker can speak publicly at a meeting before or during the body's consideration of an agenda item or on any item within the body's subject matter jurisdiction. And that usually happens during public comment. The public can bring up any item that's related to the jurisdiction of the body. With regards to special meetings, it must be strictly limited to what's on the agenda. And there are some restrictions on the public's ability to be present during these open meetings. Specifically, the body can set reasonable time limits. They can also remove an individual who causes disruption willfully. We've also had the issue of closed sessions come up at least once. And for the purposes of this body, I don't see a need for or ability to have a closed session. But generally speaking, a legislative body can have closed sessions when it's related to pending litigation, real estate matters, or employee personnel matters. This is the big issue for commissioners to be aware of, is that if there is a violation of the Brown Act, it can invalidate an action taken, it can result in a civil injunction, and it can also result in misdemeanor prosecution. So the LADA governs the any Brown Act violations for the city of Burbank. So special considerations, I threw this in there, so from what I've been seeing in our meetings. So current agenda items, members shall limit discussion to topics reasonably related to the agenda item. And then in setting future agenda items, members may briefly discuss a topic but cannot advocate for or against a proposed agenda item at length. So you can discuss them, you can state your position, but we can't have an ongoing discussion about the reasons why we're going to either approve or deny a future agenda item. Okay? Any questions?
Emphasize that. Make eye contact with each one of the commissioners for this
I
item.
tried.
I know. Everybody.
Nobody wanted to look at me.
I'm looking at you. I'm hearing you.
I'm confused.
Okay.
Are you?
No.
Okay. Paul's not making eye contact.
There we go. Okay, so that ends my discussion about the Brown Act.
Great.
Any questions regarding the Brown Act specifically?
Of course, I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
And this may be more of a hypothetical. First off, I like the Star Wars. You said Simpsons, but there is a Star Wars reference in there, so I
I
appreciate that.
couldn't find
That's
an
okay.
alternative.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm looking at, it's the item around the agendas, it's the beginning of the agendas piece, which talks about the basic rule, no action or discussion unless posted on the agenda. Then it provides exceptions, and I wanted to visit that for a moment. Because of the nature of our commission's role, we're advisory in nature, so there is no reason we would need to have a closed session. But I'm wondering, there are incidents that do come up periodically that multiple commissioners, sometimes the majority of commissioners, are aware of that are in the city, and we also know that there's public concern raised about it. So I'm wondering, I'm going to go ahead and use the incident that involved the transportation. I don't want to go too far into it, but I'm using this as an example. The incident that involved the transportation of an individual back to North Hollywood about a year or so ago, and everything. It was a hot topic issue. There were a lot of concerns that were brought to the commission about this, but because it wasn't agendized, we were able to talk about it later after we agendized it. In a situation like that, if 2/3 of the members present would determine there was a need to talk about it, then would that fall under that criteria or no?
Because you're an advisory commission, there's no need for an immediate action
Okay.
to be taken. We're talking about maybe a rulemaking decision, some sort of guidance for staff in terms of dealing with or
Right.
addressing an issue.
Yep.
In terms of being advisory, it's the safest step forward would be to agendize it for the next meeting.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions folks have? About anything related to the Brown Act materials? No. All right, so stay focused on when we agendize items, we're agendizing, we're not having a debate or discussion at that point, and we're going to do everything we can to stay focused on topic.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Making eye contact right with you.
All right, so we'll move on to conflicts of interest.
Which I may have created just now.
So again, this is probably not going to apply to this commission specifically because it's an advisory board. It's not a decision-making board. But in case you do decide to sit on a future board, which does have decision-making power, conflicts of interest is a key area that you need to be aware of. So the general rule is a public official cannot participate or influence a decision if it is reasonably foreseeable and material that the decision will affect a financial interest of you or your immediate family. And that includes engaging into any sort of contract where there's a financial interest. It also prevents you from participating in a decision if you as a commissioner cannot be disinterested. The biggest issue here is the appearance of bias as well. So you want to make sure that if there is any remote potential that there is a financial interest, you'll want to speak to either the city attorney's office or the chair to bring that issue up before the meeting, or if it's during the meeting, you may want to bring it up to the chair immediately so that they can address it with the attorney. So some of the basic categories of financial interests include if a commissioner sits or has an interest in a business entity that are within the city limits, interest in real property, interest in non-governmental sources of income, interest in sources of gifts of $630 or more in the past 12 months, interest in officials' personal finances of $500 or more within the past 12 months, interest in campaign donations of more than $500 within the 12 months during and after being appointed, and contractual interests. Potential consequences for violating the conflicts of interest provisions. It can invalidate a decision made by the board in which the commissioner sits on. There may be attorney's fees awarded to the prevailing party. For the public official, it means potential misdemeanor prosecution and fines as well. It could also result in the public official being prevented from participating in that board or commission in the future. What should you do if you do believe there is a conflict of interest? Alert the appropriate staff members so they may consult with the city attorney's office, department head, and/or chair. Remove or recuse yourself from the decision unless the city can obtain an opinion from the FPPC, and that's called a safe harbor opinion. With that in hand, you have a strong argument against any sort of claim of violation of the conflict of interest laws. So we want to make sure we can get a safe harbor opinion. Those take a few months. It's not a quick and immediate action that we can take. So the earlier you're aware of a potential financial conflict of interest, you want to make us aware of it as well. Us meaning the city attorney's office. Now that's done. I'm done with the conflicts of interest. I made it short for you guys because it's probably not going to apply here.
Of course, I actually do have a question.
Sure.
On the what should you do? Is your office available, if any of us had a concern about a potential conflict of interest, is your office available just as a consult
Yes.
on that as well? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
If it's related to Burbank City.
Yeah, it's got to be
yes.
related to the work that we're doing
Yes.
here. So if there's concerns about that, we can consult with you. It's not, so consulting with you doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem. It's
No,
just,
no.
it's to try to avoid a problem.
Correct.
Okay, great.
That's the best course of action.
Thank you.
All right, so any other questions on that issue? Okay, California Public Records Act. This one is starting to be a growing trend for the city and for staff. We're getting a lot of Public Records Act requests throughout the city. That's kind of being an impact on our ability to respond to these and then also do the work that's required by the city. So the California Public Records Act basically, in essence, it's access to information concerning the conduct of the people's business is deemed a fundamental and necessary right of the people. And that was incorporated in Prop 59 from 2004, and then Prop 42 in 2014. The California Public Records Act states that any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public's business, prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency, regardless of physical form or characteristics, is deemed a public record. So the presumption for any public record is disclosure. So if somebody requests a public record, the first position that the city takes is that it's disclosable We then look to see if there are any exemptions that are detailed either under the government code or under any other code or ordinance or case law.
Mike has a question.
Yes.
Under public records, it says any writing containing. What about electronic communication?
That's deemed a writing under the law, and I will get to that as well.
Are there any exceptions?
There are quite a few exceptions,
Okay.
so we'll get to that as well.
When it says all,
Right. So
Yeah.
the baseline is as a government agency, all of our records are public unless there's an exemption that applies. Okay. So I already went through the first two bullet points. So the agency must respond to a records request within 10 days of receipt. We can also request an extension that allows us up to 14 days, and we can continue to ask for extensions if we're speaking about voluminous records. We have to do an extensive search for records, or we're talking about detailed redactions and things like that need to happen. Our obligation is to provide copies or schedule a time for an in-person view of those records as well. And so just to answer the commissioner's question, a writing includes any record which pertains to emails, text messages, written record, photographs. Any type of digital means can be deemed a record as long as it's kept by the city. Okay. So this one pertains to the commissioners. That includes all of the text messages related to business that you make on your personal cell phones, text messages, emails, any other documents you may have saved on your electronic devices, even your personal laptops. Those are subject to the Public Records Act. So if a member of the public does seek those records, it's your obligation and your duty to obtain those records for us, for the city, so that we can go ahead and respond to the Public Records Act in an appropriate time fashion, in an appropriate manner. I try to do this quick, and I think I was pretty quick.
Actually, that's a good question.
That concludes my presentation.
We actually have a question on that. You want to ask? So I'll ask the question,
Sure.
and I actually know the answer to this one as well. Let's say I have documents related to taking notes on a commission meeting, or in my day job in the Department of Mental Health, I'm taking notes and everything. If I'm concerned about those records being sought, if I delete those records, is that legal or illegal?
So, as a commissioner, you don't have a retention schedule, as our city does. We have a retention schedule for pretty much every single document that we prepare. And that's a public document. You can see our retention schedule online. Individually, it depends on how you normally keep your records.
Okay.
And I don't want to answer that for anyone or imply deleting records is appropriate, but if you don't keep your records, you don't keep your records.
Okay.
But if it's contained on that device, or it's present somewhere in a, let's say, a Gmail that saves things for years and years, you're obligated to search for that and obtain that.
Thank you. Any other questions folks have? All right, Mr.
Great.
Hall, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to item G2, which is the follow-up discussion and possible recommendations, if applicable, on the Commissioner's outreach to local organizations regarding the sharing of domestic violence resources. And we have Captain Lasacco with us this evening to present on this. And then when we get into the discussion piece, that's when Commissioners will be able to report out on the work that you've been involved in.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commission. I'm here to speak about the Domestic Violence Task Force. This is as an extension of the conversation that we had at the last meeting. If you recall, there was a conversation about involvement and how we could better advise the community about resources that were available. And there was mention about the Domestic Violence Task Force, which the city is part of and has regular standing meetings. So I'm going to give you a short presentation on that, and obviously I'll be happy to answer any questions that arise. So the Domestic Violence Task Force dates back to the 1990s here in the city in one form, fashion, or another. Quite frankly, to find records going back that far proved a little bit difficult, but I was able to find a little bit. The task force has been started and stopped several times over the course of the years. We were able to find that in the early 2000s, Councilmember Marcia Ramos reinvigorated the task force. Somewhere in there, it kind of fell by the wayside. Then Councilmember Emily Gable Luddy restarted it, and then again, it fell off. And then a couple years ago, I guess 4 years ago now, Constantine Anthony and Sharon Springer brought it back to life. And as it currently stands, that group of the task force, people fall off, come and go, but that general group has stayed together since 2021. The task force meets, generally speaking, the first Wednesday of every other month. The next meeting is scheduled for April 9th, so sometimes it does change depending on schedules for the members of the task force and/or other members. And there are 13 members on the task force currently. Those current members include many individuals from the city of Burbank. You can see on there everyone from council members, city manager's office is represented, the city attorney's office, and the police department. Myself is currently on the task force. And then community representation includes several agencies or groups in the city that you might expect, right, that might be involved in domestic violence issues. This mission statement that's on the screen now was recently, and in fact, at the last meeting was codified, for lack of a better term. The group got together and decided that there was going to be the mission statement for the group, which should theoretically kind of focus the group in on the things that they should be doing or we should be doing. Concurrently with the mission statement, the 5 current goals expand, and there's nothing, really too crazy on here. They're pretty obvious and definitely worthwhile. Expand awareness opportunities, develop educational programs, expand outreach in underserved areas, strengthen and expand partnerships, and then focus on legislative advocacy. There was some discussion about directly trying to focus on legislation, but that seems a little bit, we determined was a little bit outside the scope, and we should focus more of our attention, and we'd be more effective if we were to just focus on, what was out there. Here's a past workshop. This was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. The Domestic Violence Task Force put on a community awareness workshop, several of them, as you'll see there. And this resource card is what's currently out there. It's sort of generally the same as that card that I shared with you last month here, but there's some additional information on that card. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or stand by while you chat and answer any questions I can.
Captain, thank you for that. What I'd like to do is actually, if you'd be willing to hang out for a few minutes, because I'd like to have you involved in this. The homework assignment that folks had was that a number of commissioners had agencies that they were going to contact, and the question that was going to be asked is, if somebody needed a phone number access to domestic violence resources, would your agency be that number to call? So I'd like to go ahead and give commissioners the opportunity to report out on that, and then I want to come back to a question for the Domestic Violence Task Force about that.
Sure.
Ann, you want to start?
Okay. My assignment was to contact the Family Service Agency of Burbank, FSA, and I spoke with Ms. Ramos. Not sure if there's any relation there to the council member. And she assured me that the general number is a 24-hour number and that they'll do anything they can. I specifically even asked well, what if I have no way of leaving my house or my apartment and I feel threatened and I've got kids? And she said, we will figure that out. I said, what if I need to get to you? What if I need to get to the FSA? And she said, we'll figure it out how to get you there, and we will come and meet people there. So I tried giving a worst case scenario, and I was met with, we will take care of it, and that they do refer out. She also sent me some information about the care cottages, a residential intervention program that they can help families get to, that they also help families with the legal matters, trying to get a restraining order, assist with housing, assist with basically anything they need. So it sounds like there is a lot of intervention between the FSA and other agencies that I'm sure we've all contacted with.
And thank you for that. I appreciate that. What other agencies did folks call?
I was assigned to call Zonta, and I did not do that.
Okay.
So I apologize. But I have worked with Family Service Agency extensively, especially with veterans. They've been wonderfully supportive, and came up with a new idea that we are going to hopefully go to them about. If a police officer left this pen behind, it says Burbank Police on it, and it's pretty obvious what it is. But we recently saw a television program where they give the pen to the person and they show them that on this, they have an emergency number printed. So they give a generic pen that a woman can keep in her purse who's not ready to call, but kind of incognito in her purse, she has a number and a resource left behind. I think it's something worth exploring.
Thank you.
That's similar to, I don't know where I was, but it was someplace populated by the general public. And on the inside of the stall doors, they had, "Are you in danger?" And I thought, wow, that was great, because private, what a way to reach people. That was great. And it had domestic violence number, and it also had a trafficking.
Okay.
Yeah, this was, not to be taken lightly, this was actually on an emergency room in a television show, and it just jumped right out at me. I thought that was brilliant, because like I said, it's generic and can be kept when a woman's ready to call, our person's ready to call. They could reach for it.
Thank you, Paul. Other agencies that folks called? Any others? Okay. So, Roman, go ahead.
I can jump in. I didn't technically call, but I just went online, did some research on 211. But it seemed like a lot of the numbers that were given were numbers to various agencies in different areas and different regions. I guess it's really important to point out, like, where the domestic violence occurs. I mean, if it's in Burbank, I mean, everyone knows FSA does a wonderful job of really bringing people in and having that conversation. And then, I know Lori Blake, she's actually, in my personal profession, she's one of my clients, and we've had these conversations in the past before. And it seems like where it occurs is really important, because she says a lot of the stuff gets funneled to her organization because of just proximity. But I think that, of course, there's a lot of wonderful ones that people can reach out to.
Okay, thank you. Captain Lasaka, you and I got a chance to talk a little about this after the last meeting as well. Does the Domestic Violence Task Force have a phone number for the task force to call?
I'm not aware of any phone number directly to the task force, but the task force is made up of numerous individuals.
Right.
Like I had in the PowerPoint presentation, the groups that I spoke about are part of that task force, and each one of them has their specialty, if you will.
Right.
So you would call them directly or call one of them, and then certainly they would direct you in the right way on the specific services you might need.
Which is kind of the way the Burbank Police Department would operate as well. I mean, or you as a member would be able to, you've got this network, you've got this resource that you can reach out to. So if somebody were to reach you, I'm not suggesting putting your cell phone number on this or anything like that, but
I don't even carry a cell phone.
they're good for you, good for you. So they don't have a phone number themselves.
Correct.
Coming back to why this was agendized in the first place and where we're going with it, I just want to remind folks that last meeting, we were talking about putting together this is what we're proposing that's going into the Burbank Water and Power Bill. And we had agreed and made the decision that we want to put a QR code that's going to give a link to the website that will then go to the Burbank Police Department's website that has all of the resources that are in essence on the yellow card. There's a website with Burbank PD for that. The question is what if someone's not comfortable in using the internet or using a web service to get that? What phone number would go down? Conversation that that Captain Lusaka and I were having was that if we're directing people to the Burbank Police Department's website, wouldn't it make sense to give people the Burbank Police Department's non-emergency number to make that call as well? Again, I want to bring it back to why we had the homework assignment, was that we were kind of all over the place in terms of what the right number was. And full disclosure, that conversation extended out with a number of community members beyond the meeting, which is good that people were talking about it. But the question is what is the phone number that should be on the BWP insert that's going to go along with the QR code? I'd like to make the recommendation it be the Burbank Police Department's non-emergency number.
Certainly an option, and the police department's okay with that. Again, we're going to be, we will vet out whatever
Right.
the issue is. Our dispatchers the same dispatchers that answer the 3000 number answer the 911 calls, right?
Right.
So it's just a matter of which order and priority they're going
Right.
to answer the call in. So if someone calls a 3000 non-emergency number, they're going to explain their situation the best that they can in the moment.
Right.
And then that call taker will then suggest and even transfer them in some cases to the appropriate resource or the appropriate phone number,
Right.
or give them a website to go to, or whatever the case may be. So
Right.
there's really no issue with that. And we are already very used to fielding phone calls from a variety of folks that need help that may not necessarily be police related.
Right. And I'm thinking just to wrap up this thought, I'm thinking for the work that we're doing here with the Police Commission, and we've already identified that the police department's website around domestic violence resources is where we're directing people. It seems like it would make sense and be within our scope to include that phone number as well. So that's the argument that I would make. Paul?
238-3000, in my opinion, is much more valuable even than 911, because 911 gets diverted to other agencies, whether it be CHP. I believe even the incident at Home Depot, when he called 911, he got CHP because he was right next to the freeway, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's just a matter of technology.
Right, but
so
I'm saying is-
sometimes,
We skipped that with 238-3000. We know it's going to go to our desk.
correct.
And I'll be frank with you. I even tell my scouts, if we were at Vertigo Oaks, dial 238-3000, and they will direct us to the most appropriate for when they tell you geographically. So 238-3000 is like a hidden gem that people need to understand, because it is 911, but it's a direct hit.
Just recognize that you may get placed on hold before you even have a chance to say anything, because there could be 911 calls actually ringing, and those
Right.
are always going to take the priority.
Other,
What's 211?
Romick?
It's a service provided by LA County that people can call for, for health services, for domestic violence. There's so many.
It's not a city, it's LA County.
That's LA
Yeah.
County.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Mike? And then Mike.
Just a question about dispatching. If you call 911 and the call gets dropped, there's a follow-up?
If the call gets connected to our dispatch center, it will, and then drops.
Yeah.
If the call drops before it gets there, there's no way we would know it happened. But if the call gets dropped or the person hangs up on us, there's always going to be some sort of follow-up. And the call taker is trained to make that connection and then make an assessment on if we need to send officers to the location and at what speed to send them, right? What priority to send them to the location that the caller's calling from.
Will that also happen on 238-3000?
No.
Okay.
See, also, 911 from a landline will come up with the address immediately, is that correct?
That's correct, and even now by cell phone, the technology has gotten pretty good that we can tell with pretty good certainty where you're calling from when you call from a cell phone.
Other than, Mike, go ahead. I've got a question about that, but Mike, go ahead.
Yeah. The information that's available from our police department is controlled by our police department in concert with the task force?
The information that's on our website is provided by the police department. Now, if that information came from the task force, that's a possibility, maybe even a likelihood, but I was not party to putting that information on the website, so I don't know specifically where it actually came from.
I may have, going back to November when we started this, may have stepped on somebody's toes here, and I didn't mean to. I think our group here, as well as myself specifically, had attempted to get more information out to the public and make it more available. Whether that should be under the advice of the commission here, or should really maybe be under the task force, since they specialize and focus on that specific domestic violence issue. One of the things that I spoke with Captain Lucaso, Lori, and Suzette. One of the things that I would like to suggest is that the task force has information, I'm going to ask you about that in a minute too, has information available, and that information is given at the time of a crisis situation rather than at the time prior to. And that was one of the things I was thinking about as in advertising it, that services are available in the water bill or whatever we do, or you do. But I want to make sure that we're raising awareness as much as possible that there are services available, and to get it out prior to a crisis situation. You showed a card or something that the task force had produced 2 years ago?
That was for at least 2 or 3 years ago, correct?
And is that the purple, is that available? Do the police use that as a handout?
No, the handout the police department uses is the one that you were holding right there, the one I provided you last
That one,
month.
the rape one? Yeah.
That is the yellow card. That's the one we provide at any domestic violence incident, whether it results in a crime or not. So there's several instances where the card would be provided, and it doesn't necessarily have to be where somebody's getting arrested. It could be at any time there's a domestic violence incident. So if a neighbor calls and says, hey, my neighbors are arguing, we show up, we do an investigation, there's no crime there, but a couple was arguing. We would provide the domestic violence card because in an abundance of caution, and then the law in some circumstances dictates that we do provide it.
Did I maybe misunderstand when you were showing the mission of the task force? Is that to basically coordinate the services that are available in the community, or does that include?
That's included in that, and then making sure that the community is aware of the resources that are available in Burbank or even in the county for that matter.
I think we'll leave it there. Do you have any?
Yeah, well, it's where we're going to take it to next, because the purpose of the conversation was that, again, the commission had decided that we wanted, and Mike, you had done some really good work on this in reaching out to Burbank Water and Power. The commission had decided that we're going to be working with Burbank Water and Power to insert the QR code with information that would then take people to the information that's posted on the Burbank Police Department's website around domestic violence. The question that we had at the time, again, was what phone number to include. And so once we've identified that phone number, we're moving forward. With some of the questions that you brought up, Mike, though, I want to lift up, it sounds like there may be concerns as to whether the commission should even be doing this in the first place. So before we decide on the phone number, I want to go back to make sure that we're okay with the decision that was made a while back around doing this work, around doing that insert, and just making sure folks are okay. We don't have to undo it. We can still move forward. And in my opinion, just like the members of the Domestic Violence Task Force, the more people that are focusing on this, the better, because that's helping get the word out more. So I don't think it's a problem that more than one agency or organization is promoting resources around domestic violence, but I'm seeing some questions on faces, and I want to make sure we're okay with moving that forward. Paul, and then Ann.
my concern on these things always comes down to liability, and I think whatever we're doing is we're supporting Burbank Police Department's efforts. So whatever number that their team is giving out,
Yeah.
and we are just communicating that a little louder, then we're providing a service. Anything we do, any outside organization that they're not using, I think shouldn't be in our purview.
Let's go Ann and then Mike.
Following up on what you said, I think that, you know, the more information, the more where help is that you can get out before a crisis is essential.
Okay.
When there's a crisis, many people might just think 911. But if you can have it, just encouraging folks to hold on to this phone number or hold on to this card. I think that's great. I think we should be totally 100% behind all these efforts.
Okay.
I volunteer.
Thank you. We're going to go Mike and then Mike.
Well, the topic is domestic violence. If you're using violence, 911 is the number. We are just providing a QR code for additional information. That's all we're trying to do. To link it to a particular number, you need a disclaimer. If you feel like you are in danger, you have to call 911. But, it's just a matter of let's get our task is to get the information out there.
Mm-hmm.
Where it goes from there, because we're linking it to the webpage, that's them. That's not us.
I agree. Mike?
I think the input from the captain would be really good, since he's on the task force. What would the task force perceive as our position to do here, their process to follow through here?
The task force is this is obviously within the purview of the task force. I think that's pretty apparent. So you just want to be mindful of that, and I think that's what the chair is cautioning us against here or with. But I do not believe that the task force is going to have heartache if we are simply trying to work with them in conjunction to bring awareness to domestic violence. I don't think anybody is going to complain. We should all be on the same side, right? The same team to try to bring awareness. My suggestion is that we go forward with the QR code, put 911 on there. To the Commissioner Elman's point about emergency, we can put 911 if, an emergency or currently facing violence, however you want to market that, and then right under it, non-emergency number for information, 238-3000. And I think that solves the concern that Mr. McKenna had. I think it answers Mr. Elman's issue, and I think it solves what we're all trying to push forward, right? What we're trying to do together.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, if
Chief,
I could
go
just
ahead.
jump
Yeah,
in
please,
quickly
please.
with a suggestion. This is all, it's great conversation. It's all very well intended. I think sometimes, though, there can be too many voices in the room. And I'd like to maybe, if we can focus as to where the message is coming from one voice via the Domestic Violence Task Force, I think is a great idea. We have a seat on that. We have a controlling interest in how things are done there. And I think taking the suggestions from the Police Commission and working through the Domestic Violence Task Force is going to help everybody stay on the same message, and it keeps messaging consistent. I think the ideas are great. I think probably the Domestic Violence Task Force is the best body to push this information out. And the ideas of different ideas of ways to push out information is good. I think it's probably best served through the task force, though, because that way we keep some consistency in messaging. We make sure that we're not giving too many different numbers to people where now they're getting lost in a web, and it helps also for the task force to keep themselves keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on and what's going out there, so that we don't have separate entities putting out separate messages, and maybe they're duplicating work or triplicating work that doesn't need to be done. So I think the suggestions through Captain Losacco via the Domestic Violence Task Force is probably a good way to go.
Okay. So not to make this excruciating for the commission, what we would have to do then is we would have to decide to undo a decision that was previously made by this body in this, because the motion and the action that we were taking forward was for the police commission to work with Burbank Water and Power to put an insert in the bill it would then move forward. That was the work that Mike had done. So if we're backing out of that and we're going to let the Domestic Violence Task Force take the lead on that, we have to undo that decision that was made. So not to make it excruciating, but I just want to be really clear that everybody understands what we're talking about here. So what I would need is I would need a motion to rescind the decision made in the last commission meeting, and I would need a second for that. So let's move forward with that. We can open it up for brief discussion once we open in second, but we would need to open that and second that in order to do that. So do I have a motion to rescind the decision made by the commission?
I move we rescind our decision from the last meeting concerning domestic violence and defer to the human relations part of the Burbank.
The Domestic Violence
Domestic
Task Force.
violence.
Yeah,
Yes.
Human Relations is a different
Yeah.
group. Yeah. So
We'll
domestic,
second
know
that
that.
for means of
and we'll have Paul
For
second.
discussion.
We'll have Paul second that, and we'll open it up for discussion.
I was thinking along the lines of amending it to just reinforcing our commitment to supporting the Domestic Violence Task Force. So just as any member of the community, no more, no less, to support them and just, even if it's just an administrative thing, but not to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Would that be two motions, like one
That-
to rescind and then
think
I
we
like your
rescind and
motion?
make another one.
Make another one to,
We could potentially do that, but
Okay.
so we have the motion on
Yeah.
the table right now, so we have
Just
to
to
finish up
rescind.
this
I
part.
second the motion to rescind.
Oh, it's already been seconded, so we're in discussion
Where
right
was
now.
I?
So you
Okay.
you support the motion to rescind?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any other discussion? Romick?
I support the motion to rescind. Reason being is because, with the Domestic Violence Task Force, Captain Lasacco, thank you so much for that presentation. I think with the tenure and the experience, I personally, when I was going out there trying to look for like different numbers of domestic violence organizations people can reach out to, I'm like, what if I give somebody recommend the wrong number to the wrong organization that's not going to provide the services to that individual? And I think that that level of liability is something that I felt comfortable with. And I think that, just trusting the Domestic Violence Task Force to do what they do, and then what we can do as commissioners, and like, as Captain Lasacco said, is obviously continuing the conversation, sharing that information, whether it's through our social media channels, our friends, our family, our organizations, the boards that we're on, just continues that conversation going, and then we can reach a wider audience in that respect. Maybe talking to the PIO, and maybe talking to our PIO department to see how we can get that information out there. From the city PIO's perspective, from the city's so from the city's PIO's department, and, just get that information out there. That's it.
Mike?
Can we take a vote?
Not yet. I just wanted to share. Romick, I do disagree on one point. I don't think pointing somebody to the police department I don't think there's liability associated with that.
No,
I
not the
just
police
want to lift that
department.
up.
Not the
'cause-
police department. I
Okay.
was saying that in regards to like the other organizations that we were kind of
Right.
If we
trying
Right,
to
right.
vet.
that step and went directly to another organization, we open
Yeah.
ourselves up.
Exactly.
That is correct. That is correct. Okay, so any other discussion? Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of rescinding the plan to work with Burbank Water and Power to put an insert for the domestic violence resources, say aye. Any opposition?
I abstain.
And I'll have it'll be actually two abstentions. That'll be Mike and myself. So it'll be 4 in favor, 2 abstentions, so it will pass and we will rescind that item. Okay? So with that, Mike, did you want to make another motion related to this?
No.
No? Okay. Okay.
I think you're putting the cart in front of the horse.
No. You had said that there was another, we were talking about there was another one that you sound like you wanted to make, or you wanted to make a modification, but we had to finish the motion that we were in.
I don't think it was me.
Okay.
I said I wanted to amend it
Okay.
to make a motion, which is totally administrative, but make a motion just to cooperate with the already established domestic task force
Okay.
and in publicizing their assets.
So we can do that. Do we want to make is that an action that you want the commission to take, or is that just something that you're encouraging the commission to do?
I don't know if it's necessary.
Okay.
It's
All right.
just something I think we ought
Okay.
to communicate.
Okay. Mike?
I would just like to make a suggestion that in one of the issues of the Burbank Police Department newsletter, that one issue can contain an article about the Domestic Violence Task Force and a little statistical background of what's actually happening in Burbank.
Okay. And that would be for that work that group to do that work. Okay. Captain Lasacco, thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
time and for helping us navigate this.
Sure thing.
Appreciate that.
We didn't do the,
The which one?
are we going to make a motion to support the endeavors of the task force, or?
We were just talking about, it's not something.
We don't need to-
I hope we do,
Okay.
yeah, I hope we
Okay.
just normally do that, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to item G3, which is general announcements by the Deputy Chief Adam Cornelius, brief announcements regarding upcoming events and/or items of note related to the police department. Chief, welcome back.
Good evening, Chair Coombs. Thank you. Chair, members of the commission, a couple things to catch you up on. We'll go in chronological order. Starting this morning, we attended the academy graduation at Rio Hondo for two of our new officers, Officers Huerta and Conlo. So they will have a couple weeks of pre-field training, then they'll be out with our field training officers probably mid-April. So we'll have three new officers in FTO come mid-April, and we're continuing to hire more. This coming Friday, on the 21st, we're going to be attending an award ceremony from the U.S. Attorney's Office. One of our detectives, Jesus Espindola, worked a serial armed robbery case involving a crew doing armed robberies throughout the county, and they were apprehended based on his investigation, and the U.S. Attorney's Office took it federally and prosecuted them federally, and some pretty significant prison time for a very violent group of people who were impacting our entire county, but us here directly. So we're very proud of his work, and we'll be attending in support of his award on Friday.
Fantastic.
Next Tuesday on the 25th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., we'll be having macarons with Met at the Artelis Patisserie at 117 North San Fernando. And that's French, and I probably butchered it, but that's where it's at, 117 North San Fernando. So you can come out for 3 hours and have fancy French cookies with our Met officer and our Met members, and it'll be a chance for them to talk with the community about what it is, what they do, and what they provide. On Saturday, April 5th, we're going to be participating in the Baker to Vegas relay again. So we came in first place last year, so we have a target on our back, but we'll be running fast, and we'll see how we do. We'll let you know. On April 10th, we have two graduations. We have our Community Academy graduation. That's going to be at 6 o'clock or 6:30 at our station. And then we'll have two more recruits graduating from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Academy that evening. So we're looking forward to getting them out too. And finally, on Saturday, April 26th, we will have a drug take-back event at our station, working in partnership with our partners at the DEA. And at some point in the April to May timeframe, it'll be Chief Quintero standing up here in front of you, giving you these updates, and we're looking forward to having him on board.
Fantastic. Just for clarification, the Police and Fire Day is in May, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yes, sir.
What is the head count of the department right today?
I believe we are at right about 149, 150
Thank you.
approximate.
Thank you for that. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Follow up on the question? I'm sorry, Chief.
Of course.
Actually, we don't have, I don't think this item is open to questions or
Okay.
discussion, unfortunately. This is the reporting out by the chief. How'd I do?
It's a mathematical question.
I'm not good at math anyway.
There we go.
That's okay.
Good answer. All right, thank you. All right, we're moving on to item H, which is introduction of agenda items for future meetings. Ms. Nakamura, thank you for providing me a copy of the full annual calendar, and then you will see that there are items that are already agendized for April. For April, we are already agendized equity and hiring and advancement, which has been part of our dashboard annually. We also have the Pedestrian Safety Ad Hoc Subcommittee will be reporting out, and we'll be closing out that subcommittee. On the dashboard, we also have the Communications Center Week and the Ripper Report. So with that, we've already got two items agendized for April. We are opening it up for motions for additional agenda items, which would also need to include either the Communications Center Week, the Ripper Report, or both.
I think it's a full agenda.
So the two right now. So right now, we only have two agenda items.
And the communication center.
You have to motion, we have to motion and second that. So what it is those are items that are on the, they're on the annual calendar, but we have to agendize them every year. Yeah.
I'll make a motion then to agendize the communication center
Okay,
and the Ripper Report.
we'll do one at a time. So
Okay.
Communication Center, do I have a second for agendizing? Actually, if we can we get a little bit more specific on what we're asking for with the Communication Center?
Well, I'm trying to think of how it was done last year. I know touring the communication center with the academy, but I don't know if that's necessary
What we did last year was, we just recognized them and just made an announcement.
Yeah.
We didn't actually have a presentation or anything, because there really isn't. We have other like records and jail week, and we don't, we're just focusing on one.
Right.
So we could just maybe just make an announcement that you are saying thank you to the communications, rather than having a presentation or making it an agenda item.
Thank you for making that simpler, but also things like the fact that we're describing the difference between 911 and 238 3000. Those are, I think, valuable.
That would be an agendizable item, and
That,
if we flesh
from
that
the-
out.
But
Yeah.
that's dealing with this. So there are aspects of it that even those of us who are more active than most in this realm are unaware of.
Okay.
So just a brief
Go ahead.
overview of what they do and what we should know and what the community should know.
Let's see if we can put this together. So you're motioning to agendize an item to have a presentation by the Communications Center on the difference between between 911 and the non-emergency line, and how those calls are processed and handled?
Or just the process and procedures
Yeah,
of dispatch.
I wouldn't be that specific, just say their role, because I think their role is wider than most people realize. They're not operators. They're people that are handling emergencies, and there's some degree of training and decision-making. And I think that people need to be aware of exactly what they do.
So Ray, I'm going to pull you in to see if you can help me. I'm hearing more detail that they would like, but I also know that we need to be specific. We can't just leave it general.
So I'll leave it to the chief to decide on whether that's something that they can do, but he may be able to provide better details on
Okay.
how to differentiate the two.
Okay. So it sounds like we're asking for something more than just recognizing them. And it sounds like we would like to get information on specific operations, how calls are handled, and the, and an
If
awareness.
we want something on the call taking and dispatch process, would that be?
What I was thinking-
Because when we say their role, that's
a lot.
That's very broad. And
Yeah.
what I want to emphasize is, we have staff folks who are going to have to work on this presentation.
Right.
And I want them to work on something that's going to be meaningful
Right.
for you, and not spend hours of their time working on something that doesn't really address what you were looking for.
Right.
So that's why I'm looking for some specificity in the ask, so that we can make sure that we direct our efforts meaningfully.
I'd like to pull it back, Chief, and just say a general overview of the role they play in the city, and then we could take the opportunity to recognize it.
I think that's the concern, is that's too broad.
That's what I'm trying to narrow it down.
We need to narrow
Yeah.
it down, yeah. So I think, again, as we were talking about earlier, having the communication center differentiate between how 911 versus general.
And I may be able to kill two birds with one stone.
Okay.
If we turn this into, we're going to have a recognition of them and a brief overview of their role, as we'll put them together, where we can come up, discuss what it is they do in very general terms in a couple minutes. That's something that's
Okay.
a very broad overview, and then the recognition of their service and.
Would that work?
And we go on
Recognition
from
and
there.
brief overview of the communications center.
Yeah.
Does that
So
work?
that way we don't have two separate items, and we
Paul,
can,
does that work for you?
we can address what he's looking for.
We'll talk more about what you said a minute ago. Yeah, okay. All right, so we've
Does
got
that
a
work?
motion. Yeah, I think that'll work. So we've got a motion. Do I have a second? I've got a second from Mike Ellman. All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, that one's taken care of. This is for April. Yep. And then the second item on the dashboard, if somebody wants to agendize that?
Is that the pedestrian safety?
No,
No,
no. That's the Ripper report is the second item.
How about
Mike?
this? What about if we move the Ripper report to May?
So you could agendize it for
Yeah, I
that.
would
You want
like
to try that?
suggest that we move the Ripper report to the May meeting.
Wait, motion.
Motion.
You're motioning that we're moving the Ripper report to the May meeting? And what are we asking on the Ripper report? It's not just the Ripper report.
It will be 1 year of data and the results of a high-level review of 1 year of data of the Ripper
So-
reporting process.
A review of the past year of data for the city of Burbank
Yes,
Yes.
in relation to the Ripper report? How's that?
or Mars.
Yes, I think, well, yeah, I would want to keep it Burbank focused because
Right.
when we do say
Yeah.
the data for the RIP report, we're talking about something that's a statewide.
Exactly. That's
statewide
why I want
publication.
Not only what pertains to the city of Burbank, not with the State Department of Justice and their part of it.
Okay. So we want a review, a statistical review of our RIPA numbers for the city of Burbank?
for the last year.
Okay.
For
the-
2024.
Would that
Okay.
work?
Yeah,
Okay.
we
So I've
can do
got
that. So a statistical review of RIPA reports for the city of Burbank for the last year.
Correct. Correct.
We can do
In
that.
the May.
For the month of, we're agendizing this for the month of May. Okay. Do I have a second for that? I have a second from Mike Chapman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, so we've got those two items. Are there any other items that we need to agendize for the month of April?
The RIPA was for May, right?
We moved
Changed over
it,
to
we
May.
just moved it to May, yeah.
Okay.
Any other items for the month of April? Okay, with that, I'm not hearing anything else. So our next meeting date is going to be Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, right here at 6 PM in the City Council chambers. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.